come to the conclusion that I'm just a big baby.
Let me explain.
I'm 28 years old and I would much prefer to read young adult books any day of the week than regular adult fiction.
There's just something a little more magical.
I can fly through them because of the writing style. They are meant for a younger audience, and I just think there's a little more magic in the air when I'm reading them. That being said, I have read quite a few young adult books and I have a lot of thoughts on them. Specifically with the books I'm going to mention in this video, I will be rating these really popular YA books. They're either fantasy, romance, dystopian. We have a little bit of everything. And I really just wanted to have a discussion on why do people love these so much. I will give you my own personal thoughts as well. No spoilers, so go ahead, get yourself a little drink. Of course, have my handy dandy jug here of water. And let's get into it. The first series I wanted to talk about is one that I really am shocked at the amount of people that love this book series, and particularly authors' take on this type of trope. We all know it, we all love it. If you're a fan of ACOTAR, you know it, and that is the fae trope, the fairies. It has gone viral bananas.
People love it.
And she may have been easily the first person, the originator of the fairy trope, the fae, kingdoms of fae. And maybe that's why people love it so much, is after reading this series, now it's their tried and true. The Cruel Prince is the book I'm talking about, and I have read the trilogy. We have The Cruel Prince, The Wicked King, and The Queen of Nothing. And then there's also like a spin-off series that's currently out. I think The Stolen Heir is the name of it. We have a girl that has grown up in a world ruled by the fae. The person that kills her parents basically kidnaps her and her sister, takes them to the fae world and raises them as like a ward, essentially. She is consistently bullied in this world. So we have a lot of different tropes in here. One of the main ones in book one is the bully trope. And it's probably what turned me off the most from this series. I don't really understand the hype with this book series in particular. We have the ever desirable Prince Carden, who is like the prince of this fae court, and Jude, our main character, she is consistently being bullied by Prince Carden and his friends, and we kind of just go back and forth with her trying to live in this world where she's just not wanted, she doesn't belong. So we have enemies to lovers, we have bullying, we have fae. It has all the makings of a book series I would really enjoy, yet I just really couldn't find myself loving this book. And by the end of book 3, I was just completely done with Holly Black. I'm not necessarily a fan of her writing style. I've also tried Tithe, which is also written by her. Again, I just don't think her writing style is for me, and I'm also not a fan of the bully trope. So with all that aside, why do people like this book so much? I have some thoughts. As a young adult book, this is a book series that I think teeters on like borderline new adult, not because of any inherently spicy scenes, but I think there's some beginnings of implications of stuff of like romance and what could be with our two love interests in this book series. It is really like the jumping off point for books like ACOTAR and From Blood and Ash. So I could see it in that sense, maybe if I was a younger person reading this, why I would enjoy it so much. I also think that the world Holly Black wrote with this trilogy is a little too far-flung, far-fetched for my liking. We have frogs that you use instead of horses, fae with different animalistic qualities. Prince Carden very notoriously has his tail. And yeah, there's just little things like that. Also, something that's really interesting is that the fae can't lie. So everything they say is completely the truth unless they're able to like kind of work their way around, like make loopholes of the situation and not necessarily tell a lie, but make us a little bit of a stretch of the truth. Makes it a little more interesting, and the plot for this series, as it's a trilogy, it plays really well. I'm not saying anything negative about the overall story and how the book series ended. It's more of just the overall characters and how they interact with each other. It's just not my favorite. If you are a young adult reader and you're interested in fae, fairies, you have either started reading ACOTAR or you haven't yet and you want to get into the world of fae, this could be a good place to start. Again, I think that the world building is easy enough to understand because of Holly Black's writing. There are things that are a little far-fetched that don't really make sense to me, and I personally would have kept out of a fantasy world. I don't necessarily think we need giant toads gallivanting around a kingdom, but that's just me. Also, because I'm not a fan of the bully trope, I don't understand it as much, but if you're in high school and you're reading this, maybe you understand it, maybe you get it, I don't. And then obviously we have Prince Carden. He's elusive, he's handsome, he's misunderstood, he has all those tropes that, you know, makes you want to root for the bad boy. So I can see why people would love this book so much, it's just personally not for me. In the same time frame I was reading the Holly Black Cruel Prince series, I was also reading the Red Queen series by Victoria Aveyard. This is actually a YA dystopian, so now we're kind of switching gears. It is a quartet, so this is book 1 of 4, and I actually really enjoyed Victoria Aveyard's writing style. I haven't read any other of her books, but when I was reading this book series, I could appreciate how she set up the world, and the pacing overall was just pretty interesting. It was easy to get through, and I do think that this is perfect for a young adult audience in high school, maybe even 8th grade. We're put in a world where people are divided by their blood type. So we have red blood and silver blood. If you are silver blood, you are like elite, high royalty. It's very, very desirable. If you are a red blood, you are basically seen as less than, and it is really hard to live. It is a hard world you are put through, and our main character, Mare, is a red blood. People with silver blood tend to also have supernatural abilities, which allow them to, again, rule over the red class. The only problem is our main character, Mare, discovers that she actually has powers, even though she's a red blood. So now she's thrust into this world of the high court. She is seen as an anomaly, and things go from there. Similar to the Cruel Prince series, the Red Queen series puts a girl that is not from a ruling class into like the court system, the royal family. She is put in a love triangle. I do think this one is way more enjoyable of a series than the Cruel Prince series, even though there's no fae. I think this is a really great YA dystopian series, and I do think that a lot of people like this for good reason. If you were a fan of the Divergent series, this one would seem really good because, again, we have the faction system. Same with the Hunger Games. There are people that are like a ruling class, and then we have people that are put in districts and towns and stuff and are subservient to the Silvers. So we kind of get those similarities from other really popular YA dystopians. And we also have a love triangle, which is probably the most favorite part of people reading this book series. I will say this book series is a wild ride, not just speaking to book 1, but overall the pacing keeps up. I will say book 3 kind of goes down a little bit into introducing more characters and really just understanding the world overall in this series. I think it may not have necessarily been needed as much, or it could have been smaller, but regardless, I think that this quartet is worth reading, and YA readers would really appreciate the pacing, the world building, the love triangle / enemies to lovers tropes we have in here, because there are a lot of that. And I do think also our main character, Mare, is similar to Jude in the Cruel Prince series in some ways, but I do prefer her over Jude because I feel the resilience with Mare way more than with Jude, and I think that her character development overall is just way better. She's more fleshed out as a character, and she goes through a lot in this book series, so I just appreciate her. I feel like she is someone that I root for the entire time I'm reading this, and I approve of most of her decisions. So definitely think this is worth checking out if you haven't read it, but if you have read it and you loved it, I can totally see why. Definitely think I'm going to step on some toes with this one. Let me preface this by saying, before we get into this next book series, I actually started to really enjoy this series. Book 1 was really fun, really entertaining. Book 2 was still really entertaining.
And then we get to book 3.
And the ending. I just have so many thoughts. And that is the Selection series by Kiera. I actually don't have the physical copies of the first 3 books. I have 4 and 5. So for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to show you this one. This is another YA dystopian, and it's really similar to The Bachelor if you have seen the show. We have another world made up of factions, and they're basically put in districts of like 1 through 8, 10, 13, whatever. The higher you are, the more upper class you are, the lower you are in numbers, the less off, the worse off you are. You're basically seen as scum. The government is now ruled by this type of class system, and then we also have a royal court with a king, queen, prince, all of that. Once the prince is ready to come of age to look for a bride, they do what is called a selection, and they find girls from each of these little classes, and they invite them to the palace, and they kind of compete in a way. They court with the prince, and one of these lucky ladies will become the new princess of this kingdom. Our main character, America, she is a 5, so she's kind of like right in the middle, not too poor, but really not too rich at all, and she is invited to be in the selection. The only problem is that she has someone that she loves that is an 8. The book is essentially about this, her time in the selection, the process, how it works, you're understanding the government, the politics, and all of that, and Book 1 did a really fun job of kind of giving us this portrayal of a girl who is basically just trying to do right by her family, all of the benefits that the girls get by being in the selection and that process, and then meeting the prince and understanding a lot about him and the royal family in general. I had an entertaining time with this book. I think it was really fun, really easy to read. I flew through this series, and then we got to book 3. Where I think the series just really did a poor job of tying up loose ends and explaining things fully. It could have been written out into a 4th book, or just made the book a little bigger and given us the answers that we were looking for that were kind of left unanswered. And I really feel like this book series was just cut off too quickly in order to make a spin-off series, I guess, or an extension series. But there was so much left unsaid. I'm not going to get too much into that. Why do I think people love this book series so much? A few reasons. 1, we have a court system with all of the fairy tale vibes you're looking for, with a girl that's kind of a nobody going into this palace, and she's all of a sudden wined and dined. She gets all of the ball gowns, she gets to go to the parties, and she gets to meet a prince. It's kind of like a Cinderella story. 2, we have a love triangle. We have a girl who's in love with a boy outside of the palace, and then we have the prince that she's also trying to court in a way. And these boys have feelings for her. Who is she gonna choose? 3, we have this world, this government that is clearly messed up, and we want to see some restoration somehow. Is America gonna be involved with the fixing of this government and how things are done, the rules, the laws that they've made up? How can this world be better? While I've heard so many amazing reviews about this book series, I have also seen some people say that it's just not for them, and I get that. I do think that this is almost like trash TV, a reality TV show, Jersey Shore, The Bachelor. You know it's trash, you know it's not necessarily good for you, but you can't not watch it. In reality, hear me out. I think people as a whole really love watching and reading and binging just stuff for pure entertainment, and that's exactly what this series is. This series is not to give you some sort of deep gratification or resolution or make you feel like you have improved as a human being. I think this is purely an entertaining book series, and that's totally okay. I like the book series for what it is, which is just a girl in a palace wearing dresses and learning how to be a potential princess and deciding if that's the life that she wants for herself or if she's content being with somebody in a lower faction. Obviously, there's more characters at play here, and there's way more to it than just what I'm saying. The covers also are stunning. All of these books are just really, really well done in the illustration department, and it's pretty easy to read. So if you're looking for a book series that you just want to fly through, enjoy, and be done with it, this could be the one for you. Also, the audiobook version is really, really good, so I think you would enjoy it either way, but those are just my thoughts. And again, I'm really sorry if I'm offending people. And this is probably my favorite book in this pile. Why I think it's so popular is that I think this is a perfect segue or transition from YA to adult fantasy. It has some really dark elements and themes, and the setting is just immaculate. The world building is pretty intense, but because it's YA, it's still written in a way where you understand what's going on every step of the way. You're not overly confused where I think you could be lost if you're reading, say, Lord of the Rings. This book series, I gave a 5-star rating. I absolutely love it. I think it gives me everything I'm looking for in a fantasy world. That is the Ember and the Ashes series by Sabaa Tahir. Now, this is, again, another quartet, so this is book 1 of 4, and they are very thick. This is a very large, in-depth series in another really broken, fallen kingdom where we have people that are subservient to higher ruling classes, so we have a really messed up class system. Her brother was taken from her, and now she is trying to get him back. In order to do so, she has to infiltrate this military academy, which is really hard to get into. It's very dangerous, and she's essentially a spy for the resistance while working in this military academy. There we meet Elias, so we have multiple POVs in this book series, so buckle up for that. And he is the son of a very powerful soldier, and he's also in the military academy training to be what is called a mask. These people are essentially paid assassins. They're the soldiers of this kingdom. They're highly dangerous, highly powerful. These two people, basically their paths cross in this book series. It's a doozy. It's very emotional. It is dark. It is heavy. It has really great elements of political intrigue. Again, not too difficult to understand, but why do people love this book series so much? For a YA fantasy, it gives you most of the elements you're gonna get in a fantasy series, like world building, political intrigue, a magic system, and a romantic subplot. There isn't too much romance in here where you're gonna get it with maybe the Selection series. It's not really about that so much as it is about this kingdom, how broken it is, and how it can get repaired. We do, like I said, have dual POVs, so we're gonna have some star-crossed lovers tropes in here. We're going to have military battles. We're going to have some mysterious magical system in this forest and things that we're not totally gonna understand, but you will understand more and more as the series continues and progresses. And the character development is amazing. By book 4, I was sobbing. And I'm pretty sure everyone else that read the series was as well. If you're a YA reader and you haven't read this book and you're interested in fantasy, this is definitely the stepping stone to all epic fantasies in your future. It is so good. I can totally see why it's really hyped up on Book Talk, on booktube, why young adult readers and adult readers really love this book series. Again, it is an epic fantasy, but it's not so difficult to understand. You have all of the tropes you're really gonna love in a YA fantasy series with romance sprinkled in there. Don't be too scared, I guess, of the size of these books, because while they are really large, you're gonna fly through this series. And hopefully I'll find another epic fantasy series in the YA genre that will match up to this one. So far, this is the only one I've read that's really been unmatched in the YA fantasy series for being just a complete epic fantasy without having too much of a romantic subplot. Because we've seen fantasy romances before in YA, like the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, or even Dance of Thieves. But for the most part, I do think that this is gonna focus more heavily on the politics, on the military advancements, and just overall the fantasy world building and mythology that we get in this series. So more than anything else, I would love to know your thoughts on these books, if you've read them or not. Do you think they're worth the hype? Why do you think people love them so much? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you're looking for more YA fantasy books, go ahead and check out any of these videos right here. I would love for you to watch them. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this video if you haven't already. But until next time, I'll catch you in my next video. Bye!